What's up guys, in this video we're going to be going over how we can make a basic gun using raycasting in Roblox Studio. In order to start making our gun, let's go ahead and open up our workspace inside the Explorer right here. And if you don't have the Explorer open, which is this little window right here, then what you want to do is go up here to the View tab and then open up the Properties window and the Explorer window. There are the two buttons on the very far left, so make sure you have both of these clicked on and they should appear somewhere on your screen. Next, open up the workspace right here. Right click or just click on the plus icon to the right of the workspace and we're going to be searching for a tool, just like this. And this tool we're going to be naming to gun. You can click on it again while it's selected to rename it to gun, or you can go down into the properties and change the name to gun. Next, here's where you're going to customize your gun. Now you might be using a custom mesh or a custom part, it doesn't really matter, just keep in mind that if you are using multiple parts, I recommend welding them together. A good way to do this, let me explain, is let's say I have two parts for my gun model here. I'm going to shrink this down. Alright, so I just got done building the barrel of my gun. It's very basic and simple, but it's going to work for the basics of this tutorial. Now let's say I wanted another part for the handle, and then I'm going to weld those two together so I can show you guys how it works. So we can press Ctrl and D to duplicate this part. And then you can press Ctrl and 3 to use the scale tool, or click on these tools accordingly up here. I'm going to scale this down to about here and scale it down once again, and then scale it down from the top. Alright, so now we have a handle for a gun and the barrel of our gun. What we're going to want to do is click on the handle part right here, and we want to rename this one to handle with a capital H. It's very important that you add the capital H, otherwise Roblox won't recognize it as an actual handle for our tool, and your tool won't be able to be held by the player. Next, you can name the other part of your gun, or if you're using multiple parts to your gun, I recommend just renaming them to whatever makes sense the most. Since this is the barrel of our gun, I'm going to be renaming this to barrel, just like that. And then we can drag and drop the barrel into our handle part. Next, inside of our handle, we want to click on the plus icon to the right of that and search for a weld constraint. When you add a weld constraint to a part, it's going to have two properties inside of it that we're going to be using. The first one is the part 0 and the second one is the part 1 property. Now what a weld constraint does is it basically welds two parts together, hence the name. So if we set the part 0 of the weld constraint to the handle and the part 1 to the barrel, you can see that these will stick together inside of the game, which is pretty cool even though they're not unioned. And you can do the same thing with this even if you're using mesh parts or whatever, just make sure that you have your parts welded together. Another thing, you aren't going to want to make sure that they're anchored, because we want the player to actually be able to move around with them, so you can just leave them how it is at the moment. Now we can drag and drop this into our gun tool, just like that, and as you can see, if you did everything correctly so far, a thing called a touch interest should be added into your handle. Now there are a few things we want to add to our gun. The first one, if we click on the plus icon to the right of our tool, we want to search for a remote event. This one right here, so if we click on this, and that'll be added into our gun. I'm going to rename this to shoot because it's what we're going to be firing whenever the player wants to shoot their gun. Next off, we're going to be needing to insert two different scripts into our game. The first one is a local script which will handle the whole thing locally, such as the ammo, firing the event, and basically everything that we're going to want to be doing on the client side. And then the actual script is going to be using for the raycast and the damage. So you want to click on the plus icon to the right of the gun tool again, and let's search for a normal script. When you add this into the game, it's going to actually put you into the script editor, but you can close off the script for now. Next, right click on the gun icon once again, click on this and add in a local script. And now we can get scripting with our local script here. What we're going to start off with is a variable called user input service. So we're going to say local user input service, and this will be equal to game get service user input service. We're going to be using user input service because it's a super easy way to tell if a player has touched a certain key or not, which in this case we're going to be pressing R so that the player can reload. Next we're going to get the player, which is going to be equal to game.players.localPlayer. Next, after the player, we want to say local mouse will be equal to player :get mouse, just like that. This variable is getting the player, which basically happens is that when we have this gun inside of the starter pack, it'll basically distribute the gun to every player that joins our game. So since we have a local script inside of each one of those, it's basically going to find the player that's using this local script. So that's why we find this player, which is the local player. Next, we're getting the mouse from the actual player here because we want to actually find their mouse position with their raycast. Next, we say local tool will be equal to script.parent, and then local debounce will be equal to false. We're going to be using the debounce as kind of a cooldown as to when the player can shoot again, and the tool is just our tool that we insert into the workspace. Next, we need a few variables right here for our ammo, max ammo, and whether or not the player is reloading. So we're going to say local ammo, and this will be equal to whatever number you want it to be. I'd recommend 8 or so for a pistol, equals to 8 I mean. I think that is a good size of a magazine for them. Otherwise you can do 16, even 32 if you want to, but I recommend 8. Next, you can also determine the max ammo that we're going to be determining when they reload. So we're going to say local max ammo. This can be equal to whatever you want it to be once again, but I'm going to make it to the same as the ammo for now, which is 8. Now we can just say local reloading, and this will be equal to false. Now we have all of our variables set up. Let's actually get scripting our functions. So this is going to be our reload function. You're going to say local reload and then parentheses. We need to say local function I mean. Next we're going to check if reloading equals to false, then we're going to set reloading equals to true. We're going to say task.wait about 1 second. You can change this to however you want to. And then we're going to say ammo will be equal to max ammo. After we set the ammo to the max ammo once again, we're going to set reloading back to false just like that, so that way the player can reload again. We're going to be coming back to this function a little later when we actually have sounds for our gun, but for now, since we don't have any of the sounds yet, we're going to be leaving it kind of empty for now. Now we're going to create another function, which is basically going to be our shooting function. We're going to say tool.activated, and we're going to connect a function just like this with parentheses at the end of the function. Now we're going to check if our debounce equals to false, and our ammo is greater than 0, and our reloading equals to false, then what we're going to do. So these are basically all the conditions that we're checking that need to be set in order for our player in order to shoot their gun. So we're making sure that they have more than enough ammo, we're making sure they aren't reloading, and we're making sure that our cooldown is not active. Next, we want to set our debounce equals to true, our ammo will be minus equals 1, and then we're going to say tool.shoot, and then we're going to fire server, and we're going to grab our mouse, which is our mouse variable right up here, and then we're going to say .hit.position. Just like that. So basically, whenever we're going to activate our tool, we're checking that if all of our conditions are met, then we're going to take an ammo away from the gun, and then we're going to fire our shoot remote event right here. And we're going to pass the mouse's position as the current position as when they fire that event. So let's say inside the workspace, my mouse was over here on this square. Now whenever I activate my gun or click with it, basically, then it's going to find the exact position that my mouse is at the moment, and it's going to send that over to the server, which we're going to be using later on for our raycast. Back inside of our script, say task.wait about 0.1 or 0.2, however long you want to make this debounce. And then we say debounce will be equal to false once again. And then we want to say else if ammo is greater than or equal and less than or equal to 0, and our reloading equals to false, then we're going to call our reload function just like that. So basically we're checking that if these conditions are not met, then we're going to check that if our ammo is less than 0 and our reloading is still false, then we're going to go ahead and reload the gun for them whenever they try and shoot while their gun has no ammo. Now we are going to be using our user input service to actually call the reload function whenever they press R. So what we're going to say, I'm just going to rename this to our user input reload, just like that. And so we're going to say user input service dot input began, and we're going to connect a function to this with 2 parentheses at the end. And these are going to take the input object, which is the actual button that the person is pressing, and we're going to put our is typing after that with a comma separating the 2 of them. The is typing parameter, we're just going to check real quick that if the player is typing and they accidentally or purposefully use the button R, we want to make sure that our function doesn't run because they're going to be typing and they probably don't want to reload while they're typing. So we're going to say if is typing, then we're just going to return end just like that, so we stop the function right there. Otherwise, if our input object dot keycode equals to enum dot keycode dot r, then we're going to call our reload function just like that. So we're basically checking that if the button the player pressed equals to the R button on their keyboard, then we're going to go ahead and reload just like that. Now getting close to the end of our script here, we're going to make an equip function, and then we're going to say tool.equipped, and then we're going to connect a function to that. So whenever our tool gets equipped, we're going to run a function right off of that. We are going to be playing like a sound and stuff whenever this happens one more time. However, if you would like to change the icon of your gun, you can feel free to do that by saying mouse.icon will be equal to quotation marks RBX asset ID : / I forgot the ID right here. And then here's where you're going to put your ID of whatever image you want to. If you don't know how to get the ID of your image, I'm sure there's another tutorial out there somewhere. However, if you would like me to, I can make another tutorial on that. However, I'm just going to leave this blank for now. Once again, we're just going to say tool.unequipped, and we're going to connect a function to that. And this, we're going to do the same thing with the mouse.icon. This will be equal to RBX asset ID : / just like that. And by the way, if you leave the RBX asset ID blank like this, it's just going to make the mouse icon the normal icon. Now this is pretty much all for our local scripts, so let's go over to our normal script right here. Well, let's clear out the print hello world real quick, and we're going to say local tool will be equal to script.parent. Now we're going to dive right into the function right here, which is going to be called our raycast function, and we're going to say script.parent.shoot.onServerEvent. We're going to connect a function to that, and this function is going to be the player because we want to make sure that we're getting the player's mouse. We put a comma right after that, and then we say mouse position. Now what's happening here is these are the 2 parameters that we're passing through our shoot remote event. If we go back into our local script real quick, right up here, as you can see, whenever we fire the server on our shoot event, we're passing mouse.hit.position. So that's why inside of our script we have the mouse position inside of here, because that is our mouse.hit.position that we are passing over to the server script basically. And you'll notice that we didn't pass the player through this remote event because that automatically happens when you're going from the client to the server, and so we can just grab the player for free right there. Next, we're going to say local raycast params, and this will be equal to raycast_params.new, just like that. Next, we're going to set a few different properties for this raycast params object. We're going to say raycast_params.filter descendants instances, and this will be equal to an array. Now this array we're going to fill with the player.character, just like that. What we're basically going to be doing with this is that we're putting the player.character into an empty array, which is no longer empty empty because we're putting the player's character inside of it. And then we're basically going to filter them out of what the raycast can hit, so that way the player can't shoot themselves while they're shooting the gun. Next, in order to make sure that we're actually filtering them out, we want to say raycast params filter type, and this will be equal to enum.raycast filter type.exclude. That way we exclude the player.character from being able to be hit by the raycast. Next, we say local raycast result, and this will be equal to workspace raycast. This is what we're doing to actually spawn in our raycast, you could say. And inside of these parentheses, we're going to take our tool.handle.barrel.position, comma. We're going to go into parentheses here because we want to subtract a few things. So we want to say our mouse position space minus our tool.handle.barrel.position, and then outside of the parentheses right here, the first parenthesis, we want to say times 300, and then we're going to put another comma after the 300 and say raycast params because that is our variable right there. I'm going to be explaining what this does once we're done with the script real quick, so I just want to make sure we go over everything. Next, we check if our raycast result, then what this is doing is we're basically checking that if our raycast result hits something, which means it's not nil, then we're going to say local raycast instance, and this will be equal to raycast result.instance, and what this is going to get is whatever the instance is that our raycast hit. After that, we're going to grab the local model from the raycast instance, so we're basically going to check if that raycast instance has a parent and if that parent is a model. So this will be raycast instance find first ancestor of class parentheses, and then we're going to put quotation marks and model just like that. Then we're going to check if it was a model, then we're going to check if that model find first child humanoid with quotation marks just like that. Then what we're going to do here is we're going to check if the raycast instance was equal to the player's head or anywhere else on their body. So this is going to be pretty cool if you want to add headshots to your game, which I think are really epic and a very unique feature. Then we can basically make it do double the damage if the player hits the player's head. Otherwise, we can just do half the damage or the original amount of damage if we hit some other part on their body. If you don't want to do that, you can just say model find first child parentheses quotation marks humanoid take damage parentheses and then something like 15, or you can change this number to however much damage you want the player to take from your weapon. But I believe that I want to have the headshots, so instead of saying this right here, we can actually just copy this line or cut it with Control and X, or you can right click and just press cut. Because we're going to be using it, we just want to say if raycast instance dot name will be equal to head, then we're going to paste that line from earlier. I'm going to change this to 30, else I want to paste that line once again. So basically, if the raycast instance's name equals to the player's head, then we're going to make them take 30 damage. Otherwise, if it does not equal to their head, then we're going to make them take 15 damage. Now let's go over the script real quick. This tool variable, that is just getting our gun tool once again. This line right here sets up a server-side event listener using the on-server event. This event is triggered whenever the client fires a corresponding client-side event, which was our shoot event where it's firing the server right here inside of our local script, and then the connect function is used to bind a function to that event right there. Now the function connected to this on-server event takes two parameters, which is player and the mouse position. We already kind of went over those a little bit earlier, but basically these parameters represent the player who triggered the event right here, and then the position of the mouse cursor whenever the event occurred. Inside the function, we make a brand new raycast params object, which stands for parameters, I believe. This object is used to specify parameters for performing a raycast, which is a technique to cast a virtual ray into the 3D world to determine what it hits in its basic form. What we're doing is we're basically shooting out a little invisible laser from wherever we tell it to, which in our case is the tool.handle.barrel.position, and then it's going to go towards the mouse position minus the tool.handle.barrel.position times 300 basically. So it's going to go in a pretty long amount of distance, and it's just basically shooting out an invisible line towards wherever we want it to, and then it's going to basically return that information that we can use later on in our script. We already went over these. Basically, this is just filtering out the player's characters so that they can't shoot themselves, and this is the line where all the magic happens. This line actually performs the raycast by calling workspace:raycast, and it's going to take 3 arguments: the starting position of the raycast, which is our tool.handle.barrel.position, and it's going to take the direction of the raycast, which is the mouse position minus the tool.handle.barrel.position times 300, and that's going to take the raycast params object at the last. So that will basically take all of this information right here and use it inside of our raycast. So if the raycast hits something, which is what we're checking right here, so if the raycast result was not nil, then we're going to check that if it has an instance, or if it was an instance that it hit, then we're going to check if the hit instance, which is this, actually has a parent model object by calling find first ancestor of class model on it. This is used to find the top level model containing the hit part, which is basically going to find the player's character. Now, if a model is found, which we are checking right here, then we're going to check if that model has a child called humanoid, and then if it does have a humanoid, we're checking if the raycast instance's name was head, and this is where we actually do the damage to the player. So let's close off these scripts real quick, and if we go to the avatar tab right up here and then open up the rig builder and then go down, you can choose whatever rig type you want to. I'm just going to click on my avatar real quick, and then you can paste these around wherever you want to with Control and D. I'm just going to make a few dummies for us to test with. So let's go to the home tab and click on play. So I forgot to put the gun starter pack, but that doesn't really matter because we can go over and pick it up, and you may have to adjust how the handle looks inside of your player like this, because this is not the way the gun should be facing. But anyways, if we click somewhere on one of these dummies, you can see it will do a bit of damage to them. Now at the moment it's only doing 15 damage to them because I'm only hitting them in the body. However, if you see I hit them on the head, it does a much significant amount of damage like this. So this is the body damage, it does about that much, but then the headshot damage does much more. So I think that is very cool. Let's go ahead and add a little ammo thing and some sounds to go with our gun. For the sounds, we're going to click on the plus icon to the right of our gun, and we're going to search for a folder. For this folder, we're going to rename this to sounds, just like that, and let's open up the toolbox. If you have your own custom sounds for this, that would be great. Otherwise, we're just going to be using the toolbox for some sounds, because there we can find some decent quality sounds for our gun here. So inside of the toolbox, we're going to change this from models to audio, just like that, and it should already be under the sound effect category. However, if it is under music, you can swap it over to sound effect by clicking on this big blue button. Next, we're going to search for a few different gun sounds, such as a gun reloading. We're going to check if there are any. I'm just going to grab the top one that sounds like it'd be perfect, like this gun reload. I'm just going to put this one into the sounds folder, and then let's search for a gunshot, because we're going to be using that for whenever we shoot our gun. Alright, and then we want to search for a gun equip sound effect. And I'm just going to be grabbing the top one right here. So now we have all of our sounds that we are going to be using. Let's go into our local script and play them all accordingly. So inside of our reload function right here, what we're going to want to say is we're going to want to say tool.sounds .gunreload:play, just like that. And that will play our reload sound whenever we reload. Next, inside of our tool.activated function, right above wherever we fire the server for our shoot, actually right below it, let's say tool.sounds.gunshot, and we're going to tell that one to play. And then down here inside of our equip function, you want to make sure that we say tool.sounds.gunequip1 play. You are going to have to change the names of these to whatever sounds you have, unless you're using the exact same sounds as me, and that should add sounds to our gun. So now let's go ahead and close off our script, just like that, and let's close off the workspace. Inside of Starter GUI here, we're going to want to click on the plus icon to the right of Starter GUI and insert a Screen GUI. Now inside of the Screen GUI, let's rename this one to Ammo GUI, and we're going to insert a frame. So click on the plus icon to the right of the Ammo GUI Screen GUI and search for a frame, and now you can move this around wherever you want to. I'm going to put mine on the bottom right about here. I'm going to make it a little smaller, and you can customize this however you want to. However, I'm going to be leaving mine a little blank. Next, inside of our frame, I'm going to add in a text label, and now we can mess around with the properties of this. I'm going to change the background transparency on both the text label and the frame down to 0 so we can't see the background of them. I'm going to up the size of the text label to 1,0,1,0. That way it takes up the entire size of the frame. Scrolling down in the properties, I'm going to change text scaled to true. I'm going to change the font over to my personal favorite one, which is Fredoka 1, and I'm going to change the text color over to white. Next, you can add in a UI stroke to your text label, which is something I personally overuse a lot because it adds a really nice outline around your text, and then you can up the thickness of the outline inside of there if you would like to. I think that is perfect, so I'm going to be rolling with this. Inside of your text label, we want to set the text down to about a space, just like that, so that way it doesn't appear as anything, because we're going to be changing the text later on inside of our script. So you can close off Starter GUI now, go back into Workspace, back into our gun, and back into our local script. So inside of our tool.equipped function right here, we're going to want to say player.playerGUI.AmmoGUI.enabled equals to true. And then down in our unequipped function, we want to say player.playerGUI.AmmoGUI.enabled equals to false. So we're basically turning it on whenever the player equips the gun, and then turning it off whenever the player unequips the gun. Now after this task.wait inside of our reload function, actually let's go below the ammo equals to max ammo. We want to say player.playerGUI.AmmoGUI.frame.textLabel.text will be equal to quotation marks ammo colon space dot dot our ammo variable, and then we're going to say dot dot quotation marks slash dot dot and then our max ammo variable, just like that. So what we're doing here is we are concatenating. What concatenating is basically where we combine strings and variables, or just multiple strings at a time, but in this case we are concatenating strings and variables. So we're taking a ammo string right here, and then we're combining it with our ammo variable, and then we're taking a slash string right here, and we're combining it with another variable. Next, inside of our tool.activated function right here before the task.wait, we want to go ahead and say player.playerGUI.AmmoGUI.frame.textLabel.text equals to, actually we can just copy this line right up here and just paste that right here, because that we want to update their ammo basically whenever they shoot. I believe that should be everything, so let's go ahead and click on play. Inside of the game, I once forgot to go ahead and put the gun into starter pack, but you can do that on your own, I believe. Anyways, let's pick up the gun. As you can see, whenever I pick up the gun equipped sound will play. Let's test out shooting the gun. You can see that whenever I shot the gun, my ammo changed just like that. When I shoot the gun again, the sound will also play, as you'll notice. and my ammo is refreshing every single time. Now when we get to 0, as you can see, and I try to shoot, we're actually going to be reloading. The reloading sound will play, and then we are back to 8 ammo out of 8. Stopping the game, there is one more thing I want to fix, and that is the fact that our ammo GUI wasn't actually displaying our text when we first equipped the gun. So inside of our starter GUI, our ammo GUI, screen GUI, let's go down to the text label inside of it, and let's change the text one more time back to ammo, space, let's say 8 out of 8, just so that it looks like that whenever they pull out the gun as a starting op. Now all we need to do is click on our ammo GUI, screen GUI, and then turn off enable. After that, this is your finished gun. You have an ammo GUI, you have sounds that play whenever you shoot and reload the gun, you have headshots, body shots, you have raycasting, so it's very reliable. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video just as much as I did, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment down below. Also, this gun is very customizable, so make sure you do you and make your own types of guns for your own types of games. See you later.